they threw in the towel. There was, too much pressure on the Latin Monetary Union, or even those which remained outside, like Great Britain earlier. And what happened was that the French, and last country was Switzerland, which left the gold standard, and that was the Latin Monetary Union was kept alive, but this was just too much shock. The demonetization of silver, demonetization of gold, and formally it disbanded in 1927. And that was the end of the sad story. But why not take the bright side and say that ultimately this was not such a bad thing? It was a very good thing. So let's revive it, and let's correct the one mistake they made, which is the fixed ratio, which they should have left flexible. And reintroduce these gold coins and silver coins. And this would replace these centrifugal forces which pull the euro countries away from one another. It would replace it with a centripetal system, that rather than pulling apart, the system would pull together, because gold and silver are the most marketable goods as far as we can find. And it would be a much more stable system. In fact, it would give leadership to the world, and it will be imitated by Asian countries, American countries, I'm sure, because it would be very successful. With tremendous release of pent-up demand for gold and silver coins. So let's give a chance for questions.
Any questions?
We will not be able to return this. This is an extra, as I explained. We have a program which we are following here, the course on credit arising out of savings. This is our main theme. That's outside, but I want to offer it to you as a viable solution to the world problem, and that's why, with a little bit of exaggeration, I'm saying that I've untied the Gordian knot, except that the governments are not very much interested in listening to us. Okay, I could gather, I'm sure, a lot of followers, but the government is a different story.
I still don't get it in the keys. The paper money system is the source of the problem, but it developed other problems, and even a solution like this would not solve the deficit problem, or the structural problem of all the problems. Greece isn't broke because of the paper money. Sure, it's the source of all the problems. But Greece at the moment is not broke because of the paper money system. It's broke because of the absurd structural situation. I don't know, they have 30 or 40%.
What's the structure?
I think Rudy's trying to say that what's the point in proposing these ideas if budgets aren't balanced, trade is not balanced.
The answer to your question is that the government finances presently look very bad because this runaway debt, the government debt is running away. There is no brake on the train and it's running downhill. But why? Because there's no ultimate extinguisher of debt. The danger signs would have shown up. Now, once you refinance the government in the European countries in terms of this revived gold franc and silver franc, but if you want to call them gold euro and silver euro, it doesn't matter. Then there will be these early warnings, and that cannot run away anymore, because as the debt rises, there will be pressures brought into play which will force the weakest debts to retire. I have no doubts about this, that once you are on a gold basis, the debt can no longer run away. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is that if you look at the government debts as they exist today, the paper debts, they look hopeless and formidable and so on. But once you can make the conversion to gold and silver, it won't look as bad anymore, because once the governments have a gold income, however they generate it, either the seigniorage in the mint or other ways, then with the extension of maturity to 30 years, it will stabilize.
So you assume that the gold standard would force the countries to cut their spending, their spending and social systems and
well, there will be lots of changes. Everything will change.
So
and
the gold standard will force the countries to
I'm not saying that overnight the government deficit will disappear, but the credit of the government will be revived and will not be questioned anymore. But right now the problem is everybody is questioning the credit of all the governments, including the American, or maybe not the German so far, but who knows? So far. And the Japanese was a very strong country, a strong credit. Look at it, now it's what, 2 years of GDP is needed if you want to retire all of the debt of the Japanese government, which is so this the basic problems. I think I wish we had more time, but we ran out of time.
We've got 2 more questions.
Okay.
I just want to add that I very agree with Rudy, because I think that what he is mentioning, that what we need is discipline, is spending discipline. So without growth, we need discipline, and without discipline, even growth won't help us. You know what I mean? We had the break, we had gold in the system before, but undisciplined, evil people just threw it away. They had this break, but they didn't find it very useful because they wanted to run high deficit, they wanted to bank, they wanted to earn interest in that. So they just took away the break and throw it away. And if we want to force them and we give it back, the break on the system, I think they will throw it away again if we don't change the discipline.
Yeah.
This is what.
Could I address that? Yeah. The gold standard enforced the discipline, and the reason it was gotten away from to make it easy to do all the studying and so on. So yeah, the whole thing has to reverse. But the only way I can see it happening is a major crisis and people in the great mass of people waking up and understanding, unless we go to a disciplined form of our markets, we're dead.
But you view that crisis as a revolution.
Well, it seems like you do.
It seems like you
Yeah, we are.
Society needs only to see where we are going. Okay, this is not a good change direction.
Yeah, but we are.
Go and the people.
Gold was abandoned at a time where there was great prosperity around the world due to gold. But I think that people at the time thought it was due to their own brilliance. Disregarded gold as well. This is now a very different time. And I think there are more people looking for solutions, not just 24 people here, but around the world there are people looking for solutions. The time is very different, and a measure of responsibility and discipline, which gold would put back in, would spread. As irresponsibility spread, I believe responsibility spread.
The very wealthy society was not glued to the gold standard, but the gold standard was a symptom of wealthy society. This is why
You know, when John Law brought paper money into France, they put the guillotine to work. If you wanted gold, you had your head chopped off. In other words, if you did not accept the paper, there was a death penalty. I think it's going to turn around. If you want to bring in paper, you'll have your head chopped off. That's where it's heading.
François?
Yes, if gold becomes money once again, whatever the way, it means that the price of gold in terms of paper money may soar. And as many people have cash in paper money in banks, it means that most of the people are going to be ruined, to lose a lot of money. So, well, I just want to say, for me, even if you have a golden sword, it's not a magical sword. It will not avoid us a lot of pain, I think. The only difference is if you reintroduce gold in the monetary system, I mean, the pain will be canalized, organized. Whereas if we do nothing, it will be chaos, and we will maybe have much more pain. But I think there is, whatever way we choose, we will not avoid a painful situation.
I think that's true.
The golden sword is not a magical sword. You say, I cut the knot, and there is no pain, everything is going to be fine. I think many people will lose a lot of money, and there will still be some social chaos.
That is true, but, you know, I'll just speak on Professor's behalf here. He's not saying go back to a gold standard in this paper. So you should all read this paper, you know, and then I'm sure if you want to ask something
You see,
to
what
Professor.
it does, what it basically does is puts paper money into competition with gold coins. And it ultimately it's the decision of the people, of the bondholders, how much of their paper bonds are going to convert into gold bonds, you know. And it could be that there's a very good response and they are competing for those gold bonds, and therefore the conversion will be relatively easy. On the other hand, the response may not be so good, so only 20% of the paper bonds will be converted to gold bonds. Now, then they can do various other things. They can raise, you see, on a gold bond there is rate, a printed rate. But that's not what ultimately the rate will be, because it's going through an auction. And therefore, depending on the auction price, there will be a yield on this gold bond. And we can't predict what this ultimate yield will be. However, we can print the interest rate on the bond, and this could be higher or lower. And if a very low rate doesn't attract much conversion, then you can print a higher rate. You know, this is a possibility to influence it. So, in other words, ultimately it's the people who will decide. And of course, the gold standard is a human institution. It's not perfect, but it's the best what we have had so far in the long history of the human race. And there's no reason why it couldn't work again if there's the goodwill and so on. And the ultimate choice is this: if the blood starts flowing in the streets, and in all countries, now it starts in one country and then it spreads to another, and there'll be a massacre of people, because people, and unemployed and hungry people, and people who cannot feed their children are not going to stand for it, because some some reactionary economists say, no, gold is passé, it's atavistic, it's
anachronism.
What?
Anachronism.
Anachronism, and what did Keynes say? Barbarous relic, you know. They are not going to let their children die of hunger just because these economists by force do not allow the existing gold, which is locked up in central government vaults, to be coined. And I think at one point the government will say, well, if that's the choice, civil war, blood flowing on the street, no security, personal or property security, then I think at one point they will cave in and will allow those gold bars to be coined, and the coins will go into circulation. So that's the ultimate choice. There's nothing else. I mean, what other thing can do? You can increase your size of police, or more secret policemen, or going to dictatorship of various form, military or civilian or what have you, or going back to communism, all kinds of possibilities. But is it not reasonable that the best thing is to free? I mean, just think of it. All this gold in government, in central bank vaults, was taken from the people by a trick. They pretended that the paper money is just as good as gold. So people said, oh, it's convenient, and I believe the government. So they tricked people out of their gold, and they locked it up, and it's still locked up. And then all the educational system, universities, everything's pumped Keynesian ideas into the head of people, that this is barbarous relic. And now the blood starts flowing in the street, and it's, no, we stick with Keynes, it's barbarous relic, better not touch it. But see, people are misguided. They think that, oh, the government has a God-given power because they have the gold, and God approved it. No, this was done by trick. The gold, no government ever got a gram of gold by the sweat of its brow. Okay, it's people who did work and labored very hard, and they got the gold. And the government came, that started actually in the 19th century, and took away the gold by trick. And now they don't let this gold go and get into circulation. And that's the solution. Sorry, and we won't be able to come back to this topic, but I can see your interest, I can see the justification for various objections, but we have been put through brainwashing, and just this is up to us to get rid of these ideas about gold and develop some new productive ideas. This system is bankrupt, and this may be a way out, but we have a very grave problem, very, very grave problem. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Professor. Yeah, I will be giving